Alexis de Tocqueville was a Frenchman who spent a couple years in America during the Jackson presidency. And he originally had the intent of observing American prisons because they were deemed as being better than most European prisons, a little bit not just more efficient, but also better for prisoners themselves. They were just run more efficiently, basically. And he came to the United States to observe how our prison system worked. But in doing so, he observed so many other different things that really stood out to him, things that didn't exist in European countries at that time, especially in France. Most notably, he noticed that the United States lacked an aristocracy. There wasn't really this true nobility about any one particular class. Yes, some Americans were doing better than others. That's no secret, obviously. But new elites could emerge. You could be a self made man in the image of a Ben Franklin or an Alexander Hamilton or something of the sort. You could come from nothing. You have the mobility, both physically, economically, and otherwise, to truly ascend. Those types of opportunities were very few and far between in Europe at that time. So, for Tocqueville to have observed that in the United States was really profound. And he published his book, Democracy in America, that was really born out of the idea of, yeah, these guys are different. Kind of like Thomas Paine did back in the revolutionary days with Common Sense. These are different folks that have a different view, and they have really found something that is different than what we have here in France. And it's drastically different. So he also mentioned that while it is different and it is better and truly an opportunity for Americans to have possibilities for ascension, it didn't really apply to non-white men. So, of course, slaves and women, they're not really the beneficiaries of any of those opportunities. However, nonetheless, it still does apply to the average white man who may come from nothing. He at least has the ability to ascend and become something and perhaps become somewhat of an elite, if that makes sense. So the book, Democracy in America by Tocqueville, really held in high regard the emergence of a true democratic form in the United States. And in combination within that, as suffrage was expanded to include all white men, not just wealthy elite white men, you have more political interests that begin to emerge. And Jackson and his followers were Democrats. That is technically the same Democratic Party that you see today. Okay? They have obviously changed some of the things in their platform over the course of the last 200 years or so, but that party has continued on. Um, as somewhat of a counterbalance with the Democrats, you had the Whig Party, which was born around this era, as a Jacksonian control. They were anti Andrew Jackson. Typically, members of the Whig Party were more from your elite commercial class, and they were somewhat threatened. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later on in the chapter. Otherwise, though, a counterbalance with political elites and other institutionalized priorities developed a separate platform for political gain. And all of those different types of things really, really set off a difference between two emerging political parties. Jackson didn't have any particular set ideology other than that government should offer equal protection and equal benefits for all of its citizens. So no one region or class really should have rule. He really disliked the idea of New Yorkers having so much power. Um, and his brand of populism really reached out to a lot of folks, especially out in the South and out West. Boy, that sure seems somewhat similar to Donald Trump's message when he was elected in 2016. He does not come from political elite. He didn't come from the establishment, as he called it. He doesn't come from any of those sorts of things, and he's really trying to shake up the system. And for people who felt that they've been forgotten by the Democratic Party, he really reached out to those folks and struck a chord. So, whether you like him or not, he became president and won the election in 2016 because he appealed to folks who felt that they had been forgotten. He appealed to the common person who felt that they were left behind by the Democratic Party. Rightfully or wrongfully, that was his approach. And obviously, there was something to it because he won the election. He has a firebrand mentality that oftentimes rubs people the wrong way. Well, Andrew Jackson also had that too. Okay? So, a number of people make other comparisons, and we're going to continue to add a few more here and there down the line. But otherwise, I want you to ponder the thought of why some people might compare Andrew Jackson and Donald Trump. So go ahead and think about that. Otherwise, though, what also became somewhat commonplace in the Jacksonian era was the spoil system. Jackson made a lot of friends and enemies, but he rewarded many of his friends and political allies with various different federal offices, maybe his cabinet, anything of the sort. The idea of patronage as a process of giving out jobs due to political rewards really came to light in the Jacksonian era. And so the spoil system really aggravated the political system at the time. So as much as Andrew Jackson wanted to change and shake up and be the president of the common man, he sure did reward a lot of his friends.